大好きだから。俺も今選びてえように生きてんだ。アイスボール。
Want to be a really powerful Frost Blader? Overpowering your enemies with the powerful elemental attacks while freezing and blowing everything up in a thunder explosion? I've certainly been enjoying making elemental focus builds for you guys, like the monstrous Thunder God, the electrifying Blaster, Elemental Knight that stacks Elemental Infusion, up to the latest Fiery God of Death, which is the Infernal Demon, together with my other creations. Now all that's left is the Ice element to make our Elemental Beast complete. And oh boy, is it insanely powerful. We're not only gonna use ice-infused weapons, we're also gonna stack so much encrusted in frost debuffs to our targets, it will freeze them in just a matter of seconds. For you guys who don't know about this debuff, encrusted in frost provides disadvantage to your target's dexterity saving throw, and once this debuff reaches 7 stacks or higher, the targets become frozen for 2 turns. While being frozen, enemies can't do anything, just stand there and gain the really nasty vulnerability against bludgeoning, thunder, and force damage. Vulnerability is a powerful debuff that basically lets you double your damage output, provided that you are using those damage sources. So of course, our build will play around those specific ones. Not only do we do cold damage, we will be maximizing thunder and reverberation stacking as well. We will not only be freezing our enemies, we will also be proning them in a thunder explosion. In order to do this, we're gonna need the help of the new subclass of patch 8, such as the Hexblade Warlock as our base. Thanks to this nasty class, we can now scale our charisma instead of our strength when we're using our martial weapons. Using the Bind Hex weapon ability, not only do we scale our melee attacks with charisma, we can also spread the Hexblade curse. The Hexblade curse will decrease the amount of attack rolls that we need to land a critical hit by 1. Plus, once the target dies, it heals the user, which is a really nice addition. We also have access to our first major source of that thunder damage from the Booming Blade ability, together with the Booming Blade effect. Once an enemy that is hit by the Booming Blade moves, they also take additional thunder damage. Not only that, we'll also take advantage of that thunder damage to make an Elemental Infusion stacking ability using the Ring of Elemental Infusion. When we deal an elemental damage using our cantrip or spells, in our case the Booming Blade, we can infuse our weapon with that same effect until our first successful attack. This will give us that +1 to 4 thunder damage for free. To maximize the advantage of our elemental stacking capabilities, we'll be using the really powerful Battle Master subclass of the fighter, provided we have multiple attack capabilities like the Action Surge, Extra Attack, and of course the really powerful maneuvers. We're gonna need the Battle Master's ability to provide negative conditions like Prone and Frighten to stack even more encrusted frost and reverberation stacks as quickly as we can. Speaking of reverberation, once we get 5 stacks to our targets, they will blow up and take 1 to 4 thunder damage and the chance to prone that target. If you're thinking, does the prone from the reverberation explosion also cause encrusted with frost stacks? The answer is yes. To make it even sweeter, once your enemies get the encrusted in frost debuff, they also get the reverberation stacks, which will also work once your targets get frozen. Other statuses like Fear, Daze, and Chilled can also work to stack reverberation and encrusted with frost debuff. This is possible because of the 2 really powerful items such as the Cold Brim Hat that will stack encrusted with frost debuff, and the Boots of Stormy Clamor that stacks reverberation when we inflict a condition on a target. To further stack more encrusted in frost, we will be using the Winter's Clutches that will inflict 2 stacks for each cold damage that we deal. Our build will be dual wielding and imbuing both weapons in cold damage, so that is already 4 stacks with just simple melee swings. To add more status condition, we will be imbuing our weapon with the chilled status. This is because of the Flail of the Ages ability to imbue weapons with either acid, cold, or fire elements, plus the corresponding condition of that specific element, which is in our case the chilled status. Chilled is a condition that makes enemy targets vulnerable to cold damage. This will add more nasty synergies while we deal more cold damage. The chilled status will also stack the encrusted in frost and reverberation charges. To really double down on more thunder damage, our build will be using the Failure Alluve as our offhand weapon, particularly with the help of the Failure Alluve Shriek that lets us deal additional thunder damage from all sources. So once the enemy gets frozen, they'll definitely will get blown up using our thunder damage, elemental infusion, and reverb explosions. To add this build to the broken tier, we'll need to add more power to our weapon swings using the new Oath of the Crown Paladin from patch 8, particularly the ability which is the Righteous Clarity. This will provide advantages to attack rolls for 10 turns, plus the Bless spell that can also add advantage to our attack rolls and a 1d4 damage increase to our melee attacks. This will ensure our Frozen Dual Wielder's attack connects directly to our target's faces without any worries. I've already mentioned most of the important gear to make this Frozen God, so let's just complete the whole set. For the headpiece is the Cold Beam Hat for the Cold Brim Chill passive, Cloak of Protection for that added AC and saving throw, or maybe the Thunder Skin Cloak if you want to add that Day's Condition to the mix. Armor of Agility for dex scaling using our AC. Gloves will be the Winter's Clutches for that 2 stacks of Encrusted of Frost. Boots will be the Boots of Stormy Clamor for reverb stacking. Amulet of Greater Health for maximum constitution. Strange Conduit Ring for that added 1 to 4 psychic damage when we are using our concentration spells, such as the Bless for free. And for the final ring will be the Ring of Elemental Infusion for the Elemental Infusion effect. Main hand weapon will be the Flail of Ages, and for the offhand will be the Failure Alluve. With all those items present, your gear will most likely look like this. The godly Frozen Blade Master is born, ready to freeze and blow up everything in its way. Now, let's get into how we create this beast. We're gonna start off with the races. For the races of this build, you can go with any race that you prefer for as long as you are happy with that race. For you min-maxers, there are 2 races that I would recommend, starting with the Elf and the Dwarf. For the Elf, we just have some really nice race features such as Elven Weapon Training, and the really important one here is the Wood Elf version, which will give us the Fleet of Foot. That'll increase our move speed by 1.5 meters. For the other one is the Dwarf, because of the really nice sub-race feature that will increase our maximum hit points by 1 and increases it by 1 every time we gain a level. For this build example, I just went with Karlach because he just looks awesome with all that gear. For the classes is we're gonna start off with the Warlock just to get the first level of this class, in order for us to unlock the subclass which is the Hexblade. This will give us access to the Bind Hex weapon that will scale our melee weapons with charisma instead of strength. For the cantrips, obviously we're gonna grab the Booming Blade. This is our bread and butter cantrip that we'll be using majority of the build. For the spells, grab Shield. This will increase our AC by 5. And the other one is Wrathful Smite. Abilities will most likely look like this. We'll be prioritizing Charisma, Dexterity, Constitution. For the Charisma is our weapon scaling, so we'll be maxing this out as much as possible. Dexterity is for our initiative and our AC. And Constitution can be swapped out if ever you have access to the Amulet of Greater Health and put into whatever points that you want, maybe Wisdom once you reach level 12. But for the early game, Constitution is very important. This will increase our HP and our survivability. Now jumping into progression at Warlock level 2, we will now introduce our second multi-class of the build in the form of the Fighter. We'll be focusing on this class majority of our levels in order for us to get those really sick maneuvers and attacks to our enemies. For the fighting style, we will be starting off with the 2-weapon fighting. When we use an attack with our offhand weapon, we can add our ability modifier to the damage of that attack. Level 2 of the Fighter, having access to the Action Surge. This will let us do an extra action after we use up all of our attacks. Level 4 of our character, which is level 3 of the fighter, we will now specialize in our Battle Master subclass, which will give us access to the maneuvers, trip attack that will prone our targets, menacing attack that can frighten our target, and sweep attack for those really nice cleaves. Level 4 of the fighter, which is level 5 of our character, having access to our first feat of the build, we're gonna grab our dual wielder feat for this level. Level 5 the fighter, which is level 6 of our character, now having access with extra attack. We can now do an additional attack after our main attack. Level 7 and level 6 of the fighter, we will now have access to our second feat of the build, and we will be maxing out our charisma to 19. With the help of the hair from Ethel, we can push this up to 20. At level 8 of our character, which is level 7 of our fighter, this is the perfect level for us to jump and introduce our final multi-class of the build, which is the Paladin, particularly the subclass Oath of the Crown that will gain us the ability Righteous Clarity. We will now have proficiency bonuses in our attack rolls for 10 turns. Now level 2 of the Paladin, we will now grab our second fighting style of the build, which is Defense. This will increase our AC by 1. At level 10 of our character, we will now jump back to our fighter, which is level 7, and grab our additional maneuvers. We can grab the disarming attack that can force our enemies to drop their weapons, and the pushing attack to push our enemies by 4.5 meters. Level 11 of our character, which is level 8 of our fighter, having access to our final feat of the build, which will be dumping to dexterity for this level. We will now have our dexterity up to 18. Finally, level 12 and level 9 of the fighter, we will now have access to the class feature Indomitable. Whenever we fail our saving throw, we can re-roll again using the next result instead. Now it's time for our live combat simulation in order for me to show you guys how ridiculously powerful our Frozen Blade build can be. And as usual, we're gonna start off with the setup. For the setup is we're just gonna employ the really powerful Drake Throat Glaive and buff up our offhand weapon for this turn. What's really cool about this is that we will not be focusing mainly on our main hand weapon. We're also going to be focusing on our offhand weapon as well. So we're just going to be buffing up our Failure Aloof as our offhand weapon. So now we will be selecting Ice. Our Failure Aloof now has the Ice element built into it. After that is we're going to go grab our main hand weapon, which is the Flail of the Ages, as well as the Failure Aloof as for the offhand. After that is we're going to be buffing up our Flail of the Ages with elemental damage, provided with the Glacial Age for this ability. So if you notice, we now have two weapons that have the cold damage built into them, which is really cool. After that is we're just going to grab our elixir, which is the Elixir Bloodlust. When we drink this potion, we gain additional +5 to our hit points, as well as that extra action whenever we kill our targets. After that is make sure to bind your main hand weapon, and we can now start off in buffing our abilities. So we're also going to be including this really nice Oil of Freeze to our main hand weapon. Once we attack our foes with an ice weapon here, we can encrust that enemy in frost for 2 turns. To do this properly, we're just going to start off with the Righteous Clarity to increase our attack rolls, and follow up with the Bless to give us that really nice additional damage to our weapons, and finish up with our Oil of Freeze, activate the Failure Aloof Shriek, and that's basically it. Now our Frozen Blader is ready to decimate your foes and start off your battles. Now we just started the battle using this build, and it is now our turn to try to attack this boss. So for starters, we're gonna start off with our Booming Blade right here, in order for us to try to burst down this boss as quickly as possible. So just use Bucket of 4 rounds for good measure. Stack that crit. Now she's prone, had encrusted with frost, and that reverb stacks exploded, proning that enemy right there. After that is we can now finish her off with maybe a melee attack if we want to, or just try to attack her like that. So, and for good measure, just use Action Surge like that, and finish her off to the Booming Blade for us to just get that Thunder Infusion for our next turn. So you see here, we now have Thunder Infusion to our weapon. And now moving into the next target, use this Trip Attack melee to prone this enemy if we can. Explosion, she didn't trip. But we can now use the Booming Blade once again because of the Bloodlust potion that we have, and try to burst her down. If you notice, she is now frozen, and our ice attack, bludgeoning damage, and thunder damage will shatter this, doubling the damage output of this build. Maybe you can just use any attack that you want for this turn. I'll just try to use Crushing Smash in order for just daze our enemy if we can. Doesn't kill her. Yep, she's dead. And we can now move to our next targets and end our turn. Now it's time for us to do our action once again, and we'll try to burst down our enemies right here. I'm just gonna start off with this one, use the Booming Blade. That she now has the Encrust with Frost, and I'll just try to use my extra attack to this target so that we can freeze her or maybe do a shatter. Like that. See, he's almost dead, and we can now end our turn. So for our next example later on, we're just gonna wait some additional enemies so that we can use our sweep attack. We can use our Booming Blade to this target right here to get that Thunder Infusion, and use our sweep attack for good measure in order for us to add that Thunder Infusion damage to our sweep attack damage. Like that. We just eliminated one enemy, and we can now use our Booming Blade once again. So we now have enemies that have the reverb as well as that really nice Encrusted with Frost, and we'll just use it right here. That. He's dead. We now have some thunder charges, and we can actually use our normal attacks to this one just to freeze this enemy really quickly. See, she has 6 stacks of Encrusted with Frost. With the next attack, she will just freeze. Like that, you see? She's now frozen. And now she can't do anything, and we'll just try to eliminate her on our next turn. So we'll just use the Booming Blade for this turn to eliminate this enemy right here. She's dead. And now we can move to our targets right there. So for this turn, I'll just maybe use a menacing attack just to give you guys an example of how it works. So I'll try to use menacing attack to fear this target. So we have the fear. She didn't get the fear, but she got the reverb as well as the Encrusted with Frost because of the stack from our helmet and our boots. So after that, we can now use Booming Blade just to infuse our weapon and add that thunder damage. She got frozen and she's gonna die next turn. We'll just leave her like that maybe. And then after that, we're just gonna move to our next target and cleave them down if you wish. So for me, I'll just use maybe another trip attack just for an example. Like that. So she got the prone because of trip attack, Encrusted with Frost, shield, reverb, which is really nice. So either be frozen or be prone. Depending on your choices, you can choose either one. We still have an extra attack with our offhand weapon, Failure Aloof, so we'll just try to eliminate this one. So she's dead, ending our turn. And there you go. That's it for the build. Would love to know what you guys think, as well as any recommendations to make the build better. Would love to know all about it in the comment below. Shout out to all the people who subscribe and keep supporting the channel. I really appreciate you guys for all the amazing support. And for all the people who haven't subscribed yet, thank you for watching my videos, and I hope I earn your subscriptions in the future. But if you're new today, please don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. If you guys love build crafting, modding, or interacting with the best community in Baldur's Gate 3, we actually have a Discord and would love to see you there. For more RPG builds, news, and mods, keep it here in this channel. Finally, that's it for me. Up to you soon. The next Master Buck Show. So, bye guys.